Hi, and welcome to How to Prep Onion Rings. First thing you want to know is you will need several items to prep your onion rings. You want to make sure that you have a very sharp knife, a cutting board, how many onions you're going to cut, a tray, and your onion ring slicer. The first thing you want to do is start by cutting the ends of your onions. Make sure that you cut as close as possible to the end to keep from throwing away too much onion. The next thing you want to do is only tear one layer of onion off. So your one layer of onion is off. You cut off little to no onion pieces. Now you want to put it in your onion ringer. And there are two versions of this that we have in the company. One may be slanted, slightly slanted. This one is straight up and down, but you avoid touching the blades. So you want to sit your onion in it. They cut the onions about a 1/2 inch. And you just press down. And you have your onions. All right, step 2. After you've cut your onions, you want to make sure that you separate your onions from the pieces that are not really onion rings. And the rule of thumb to make sure that it's an onion ring, if you can put 2 fingers in it, you can use it as an onion ring. If it's broken or if it's small, like this, it goes in the bucket to be diced up. And you always want to pull off this because it becomes a problem when you start doing your onion rings. So we're going to continue to separate our onions. And once all of your onions are separated, you're going to take this container and sit it in your cooler overnight. And it's best to do your onions in the evening shift so you can let them sit overnight with no ice and no water. But remember, if any of them break or they got messed up with slicing and they come apart like that, it cannot be an onion ring. It must be a full circle with no breaks. So all of those are going to be diced onions. And I'm going to check this one. I can put 2 fingers in it. So it's an onion ring, and the center pieces are used for diced onions. So I'm going to now sit this in my cooler overnight. No water, no ice. And as I need diced onions, we will dice these up as diced onions for our hamburgers or for chili dogs or whatever you need them for. All right, after sitting your onion rings in the cooler overnight with no ice and no water, the next step you're going to do is to add ice water before you get started. So I'm going to get a scoop of ice. And the reason why we put the ice water on here, for one, the ice keeps the onion stiff and the water keeps it wet, so you can have to make sure that your flour sticks to it once you start your onion ring process. So now that my onions are in ice water, they can only sit in here for no longer than 60 minutes or an hour. So we're going to get started. The first thing you want to do is to remember you have 2 hands. This is my wet hand, this is my dry hand, and whichever hand you use is fine. Just make sure you keep these 2 hands separate. Your wet hand goes in your bucket with your ice water, and your wet hand is also the hand you use to go in the milk. Your dry hand is your hand you use for your flour and the hand you use for your cracker meal. So let's talk about what we have here. And this first container is just flour, all-purpose flour. Here is ice cream milk. You can use the mix from the ice cream machine, left over from the ice cream machine on ice cream night, or you can use fresh mix if you don't have any of that. And this is cracker meal. Some stores may use the cracker meal and the zesty batter mix, but this is cracker meal, so we're gonna make it with flour, milk, and cracker meal. So the first thing you do is you get about 5 to 7 onions, and you shake off your excess water, and you want to put them in your flour. You use your dry hand to make sure that they're covered. In each step process, you can pick up several onion rings and go to the next step, except for your final step. This one, you're gonna put it in your milk and make sure it's fully covered. On your final step is the process that you're not gonna pick them all up and put them, because in this cracker meal, you wanna make sure that your onion is completely covered to keep the milk from running, and make sure that when you fry them, your breader is not coming off. So you shake off your excess milk and cover it immediately. And you want to kind of give it a full coverage. Lay it flat on your tray. And continue. And the more practice you get with it, the faster you get. But don't try to go so fast that they turn out to be clumpy. And if your flour or your cracker meal get lumpy, you want to stop and take a sifter and sift your flour and your cracker meal to make sure there's no lumps. So we're going to do a few more. And always check with your manager on the volume of the store and how many trays of onion rings are you going through per day, because the onion rings have 24-hour shelf life, and you do not want to keep them over the 24-hour date. So remember, after going back to this process, and I have onions over here, I want to continue to use my dry hand. Shake off the excess flour, goes in my milk, and use my wet hand to make sure that they're covered and to transfer them over to my cracker meal. Shake off the excess milk and cover it immediately. Toss it in there a couple times just to make sure that it has a thick coat, and when you fry it, it does not come off in the fryer. So a couple more. And remember that if you are making onion rings and you make your amount of trays, 3 trays, and you have onions left over in your ice water, please remove the ice water from the onions and sit them in the cooler. Cover them up and date them, but they cannot sit in the ice water for longer than 60 minutes.